Hello, my name is Colin Bear, and today I will be talking about Neuralink and how it's a revolutionary technology that's making a big impact in the science world. It has to do with artificial intelligence and its integration with the human mind. Now, what does that mean? That means the possibility of implants inside, like the brain or whatever, that can allow miraculous things such as singing, hearing, um, even able to send thoughts to an electrode, and then some sci-fi's, which it's not something that's possible now, but something possible down the line, is it could even affect the way we we think. Maybe in like a more positive sense or etc. But the main use of Neuralink right now is for the possibility of cures. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is Neuralink and disease and technology today. So, in today's age of technology and advancement, people have been able to develop more and more treatments and cures for a wide variety of diseases that prior would have cut lifespans short, such as smallpox, hookworm, measles, syphilis, rabies, and more. But these advancements have pushed society to new reaches. And despite all of that, there are still more than a fair share of diseases we find today struggling with, such as the ones that plague the mind. Now, the ones that plague the mind are diseases or disorders such as autism, epilepsy, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, brain tumors, neuroinfections, and a bunch of others. And how this technology could possibly be a cure for all of those. Now, the first thing that I'm going to talk about is Neuralink. Now, what is Neuralink? Neuralink is a company and technology, both in name, that hopes to provide the cure for what I mentioned earlier about the neurological disorders. And it was founded in July of 2016 by Elon Musk, who's also the founder of SpaceX and the Teslas. And currently, they actually have their headquarters in San Francisco, California. And the technology that they're incorporating into their thing is BMIs, which is brain machine interfaces. And they're also incorporating robotics and AI. Now, to talk more about who made the company, would talk about Elon Musk, who is a multi-billionaire that bought the company Neuralink that was originally supposed to be for just like the curing of those previous mentioned brain disorders that plague people today, and to actually expand the horizons of that and push for the possibility of something that could help the day-to-day person in what they're doing in their day-to-day life. So, going on from that, I'll now talk about BMIs, the brain machine interfaces. Now, what Neuralink uses today is something that's revolutionary because it takes BMIs to the next level. Whereas before, they were using bigger needles and only able to collect smaller amounts of data based off of what they were collecting off the brain, which wasn't much. And those bigger needles actually had a chance of causing like brain hemorrhages and a bunch of other nasty stuff, which the reason why Neuralink's even more revolutionary is because it no longer causes that issue, and it's able to collect way more electrodes than it was before. It's able to collect 3,072 electrodes now, where previously it was not even 1,000. So we're talking over minimum 3 times more. So originally BMIs were introduced in the 1950s, but their applications weren't really out there until they finally got out of testing with monkeys and mice. And that led to the technology that made hearing aids. So hearing aids were made because of the way BMIs work, which is that they send an electrical signal from an earpiece into the cochlear that then goes directly into the auditory nerve, which in general works by a neural signal giving an interpretation of the outside world or some other new sensory information that then feeds it back to the brain. This technology also can allow the predicting of when a person could have an epileptic seizure by using data collected real time through the recording of electrodes in particular brain regions, which would show neural activity in predefined focal areas of the brain. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is AIs, which is also a big piece of Neuralink, and that's because it has to do with basically everything. It would decide how everything is interpreted and how we could possibly push for those better solutions to the point where it's, instead of being hooked up to a machine, it's automatic and you don't have to worry about it. Imagine if you had epilepsy, you never had to worry about having a seizure because that implant in your head would be able to, or the artificial intelligence would be able to send a electrical impulse into your brain to prevent the seizure from even happening. Now, an example of how technology that was a little bit before AIs worked was Bill Cockshier, who got into an accident that paralyzed him. And with neurotechnology, he had implanted electrodes that were able to send a impulse to parts of his body that allowed trigger of movement. So then he was able to eat and drink without assistance. And another example that could be made is how AI could allow a chip implanted in the brain directly, and you'd be able to also control other cortexes besides the motor cortex, which is the visual or auditory cortexes. So this could also lead to the possibility of people who are blind to be able to see again. Moving on, the next thing that I'm going to be talking about is the deep brain stimulation, which is also part of the technology behind Neuralink, and that's what even allows them to have such precision with their technology. So what they use are these probes that go into the brain through a little needle, and they connect with a little wire that's about the size of a hair follicle, by the way. And that is what sends those signals. And with deep brain stimulation, that allows them to find those electrical pulses along the neurons and have that precision that allows them to do so without the possibility of like those brain hemorrhages and other complications that could possibly happen. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the actual implant itself developed by Neuralink, and that is the N1 chip implant, which is put behind the ear and connected directly to the motor cortex, and it allows the interpretation of the signals that go directly from the motor cortex through the spinal cord that would elsewhere go throughout the entire body. And they hope in the future that once they're able to connect to other things such as the visual cortex and the auditory cortex, they'll be able to, work off of those and possibly be able to kind of interpret those in a way to where they could fix things such as like depression or other mind things that would plague you. So overall, that is Neuralink, and that is what I have to show. Thank you for being in listening to my presentation, and have a good one.